Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. I'm your host for today, and we have a special bracketology episode as it is going to be releasing this podcast on a Friday morning, and Fridays mean bracketology before it all changes throughout the weekend. We are officially in the midst of conference play. Every conference, interseason conference play has started, so a lot of things are changing. This past 2 days, this Tuesday and Wednesday, has probably been the most I've ever seen bracketology change in a 2-day span. So it has been very chaotic, and I will say this is the hardest bracketology I've ever had to do. So the layout of the show today, we are going to talk about the, what just happened on Tuesday and Wednesday that influenced these seed line changes, and then we're going to talk about bracketology 1 through 68 of the entire field. So like I said, bracketology shows are typically going to be on Fridays. Or at least releasing on Fridays. Some might be on Thursdays, but so we do have some games tonight as I'm recording this about 5:30 p.m. on the Eastern time. We do have some games like Ohio State at Oregon is going to influence a little bit of bracketology with Ohio State. I believe Michigan State and Illinois and Gonzaga have games that they should win, but you never know. It's college basketball. So be sure to come back every Friday, bracketology shows, like and subscribe. We're going to do live shows as well where I'm interacting with, some people, some questions, answering, what they might think with, in terms of their team. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's in the name. Be sure to check out all our posts on there, as we're going to post all these graphics that you'll see today on there. All right. So like I said, we're going to talk about what just happened over the week before diving into bracketology. So if you're only here for bracketology, you can fast forward. I won't be offended. Just look for like a tan graphic, and then, we'll start talking bracketology there. But this is what happened the past week. On Monday, number 10, Nebraska won at Ohio State. Speaking of Ohio State, 72-69. Nebraska stays undefeated. I'm going to try and go through these really quickly, as quick as I can, because I know people want to talk bracketology. USC and number 12, Michigan State. No harm there for Michigan State at home. USC has not been good since Rodney Rice went out with the injury early in the season. Michigan State wins 80-51. Rutgers beats Oregon. Charleston beats William and Mary. Yeah, that is all good, whatever there. Let's move on to Tuesday, where this was a better day. Number 7, Houston took down number 14, Texas Tech, in a revenge game from last season. Remember, Texas Tech won at Houston last season, was actually their last loss before Houston lost in the national championship game. 69-65, Houston gets the job done. Kingston Flemings is playing like a potential All-American. He had 23 points in this one, has really emerged as their go-to guy. The next great Houston guard, under Kelvin Sampson, as they always have. Houston is a legit national championship threat. I actually left feeling pretty good about, obviously about Houston with the win here, but also about Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is going to be just fine. Moving across the top of the graphic, number 6, Duke took on number 20, Louisville. Duke got the job done 84-73. Let's talk about Duke first. Cam Boozer, 27 points, 8 rebounds. Kind of got overshadowed because Isaiah Evans, it's crazy we're overshadowing 27 and 8, but Isaiah Evans and Caleb Foster were both also very good. Isaiah Evans had 23 points, 4 steals. Caleb Foster had 20 points, but which is really good, but his impact seemed even greater than that. He had a fantastic game for Louisville in this one. Just a quick story. I didn't get to watch the first half of this game, and if you listen to all our shows last podcast, I'm like, I like the bet on Louisville even without Michael Brown Jr. because Michael Brown Jr. in the lineup versus not in the lineup has actually been similar for Louisville. So I ended up betting Louisville, and Louisville's up 9 at the half. I wasn't able to watch it, and I'm like, all right, great, good bet. Glad I said that. I end up turning it on. I think it was when it was like 55-51. I'm like, all right, I expected Duke to make a little bit of a comeback, but this should still be Louisville's game at home. Ever since I turned the game on, Louisville looked like the worst basketball team I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what happened. I might have been a jinx or something, but it was just Duke all the way. Louisville was outscored by 20 in the second half in this game. And what I really took away, like I said, thought Michael Brown Jr. being out of the lineup versus at least the stats said that Louisville was actually a little bit better with Michael Brown Jr. out of the lineup. They needed Michael Brown Jr. in this game because the offense stalled in the half-court offense. It was going nowhere. They needed just a guy to go get a bucket. Ryan Conwell isn't that kind of guy. Ryan Conwell's awesome, but he's a catch-and-shoot kind of guy. They needed a Michael Brown Jr. to go create for other people, and they just didn't have it in this game. And, Louisville ends up suffering a loss. That could end up being, the game that wins Duke the ACC regular season. I know it's only a couple games in, but that's a big one. Moving on to the Mike White game, Florida taking on number 18, Georgia. Mike White's current team, Georgia, loses to his former team, Florida, 92-77. Tommy Hauck, 21 points, 12 rebounds. Alex Condon was also good in this game. We're waiting for Florida to pop. this is a good start. Good win for this Florida team. Number 19, Iowa played Minnesota. Minnesota, a little bit scrappy. They get a victory here, 70-67. Bennett Sturts missed a last-second three. Minnesota did not have a good non-conference. It's a new season under Nico Medved. He was the right choice to come back towards his. I don't remember if he's an alum there or he's just from the area, but they made the right hire. Everyone said it was the right hire, and it's gone well in Big Ten play so far. They picked off Iowa and now Indiana and now Iowa. So two good wins for Minnesota. I like Nico Medved. I think it's nice to see him, in the thick of things, not in the thick of things, but competent in the Big Ten right now. What a fantastic game. These next two games that we'll talk. Well, two of the next three were just absolutely awesome. Number 22, Kansas and TCU. Kansas wins 104-100 in overtime. I can't believe the game even got to overtime. Kansas was down like the entire way. They were down double digits most of the way in the second half. And then Darren Peterson started just popping off. He ended up with 32 points in only 33 minutes. And it was just a weird scene because they were like down 9. And then the video that went viral was Darren Peterson trying to call himself out of the game because he's just dealing with this injury, or, Kansas fans are kind of fed up with it. And, it ends up like they threw the ball to him while he wasn't paying attention, trying to call himself out of the game. And then he comes in and just, ends up taking the last shot. They're basically like, hey, just come in for one shot. He gets fouled on the shot, makes all 3 free throws. Didn't even play in overtime, and Kansas wins the game. It's kind of John Rothstein over at CBS. He kind of called it a nuisance. And that was like a great word. That one kind of stuck with me. I'm like, it is. This injury thing with Darren Peterson is just kind of a nuisance because they just can't click. They can't, he's obviously a fantastic individual player, but Melvin Council is a lot worse when Darren Peterson is playing with Melvin Council. Melvin Council was the go-to guy in overtime, and Kansas won the game by 4 in overtime. So it's just like there's no denying Darren Peterson's the most talented player in the entire country. Him or AJ Debanza, they're absolutely unbelievable freak athletes. Darren Peterson can score like someone, just a shot maker like I've never seen before in college basketball. But the team seems to be better when he's like their best version, national championship threat version of Kansas needs Darren Peterson to be maybe just a better cohesive team. It's probably without Darren Peterson. So it's a weird little thing going on there, but he's obviously incredible. And I hope he plays because he's fun to watch, but they're going to need to, they're going to need more time to gel with Darren Peterson in the lineup before this Kansas team is taken, as like a national championship threat. Number 25, UCF, the team that beat Kansas the other day, went to Oklahoma State. We'll see how they do in the second straight game. They lose to Steve Lutz's Oklahoma State squad, 87-76. Oklahoma State, we're going to talk about them a little bit in the bubble picture. They might be in a little bit better position than you might expect. Texas A&M and Auburn, speaking of fantastic games, Texas A&M wins the game 90-88. I'm sure everyone saw the video for Keyshawn Murphy's last second shot. There was 0.6 seconds left in the game. They throw it into Keyshawn Murphy. He shoots it up and knocks it down. The place goes crazy for Auburn to get the victory. And then they review it, and it is as close of a call as I've probably ever seen. They call it off. Texas A&M and Buckyball end up getting the win. I'm not going to speculate on whether it was the right call or not. It was so close. Fans were like throwing trash at the ref like it was the worst call they've ever seen. It wasn't the worst call I've ever seen. I thought it was about as 50-50 as you could go. It was so close. But Texas A&M picks up a huge, huge victory for their at-large hopes. UCLA and Wisconsin play. Wisconsin gets them 80-72. I watched about the first 35 minutes in this game because I did bet UCLA plus 5.5, I believe. And it wasn't even this close. It didn't end up being like an 8. It ended up being 8, but it was worse than that because this UCLA team's pathetic. I'm tired of watching them. Xavier Booker didn't play in the 35 minutes of the game that I watched. I don't know if he even played the end of the game. I didn't even pay attention. But this UCLA team is struggling really bad. Like we said in the last show, Tyler Bildo's moved to the 5 because Xavier Booker, they can't put him in there. And same goes for Jameson's kind of been playing himself out of the lineup as well, who was supposed to be the backup center. So they're just relying on Bilodeau at the 5 playing small ball. Maybe it'll work, but yeah, disappointing for this UCLA team. I'm tired of watching them. Good win for Wisconsin, though. Wisconsin did need a victory like this one, and they do get the job done. LSU loses at home to South Carolina. I've said for a while, I think LSU is the most computer tricky trickier team in the entire country. And as soon as they start playing, SEC caliber competition, I don't think they're going to be very good. And South Carolina gets a good win at LSU there. Number 2, Michigan did not beat Penn State by 30 or 40. They only beat them by 2. In fact, Penn State had a shot at the end to potentially win the game, but Michigan escapes this one 74-72. I love hearing, I know Kelvin Sampson said it, Matt Painter said it before. When your team is so good, you just sometimes need a loss to remotivate, refocus. Hey, you're not just going to walk into the gym and walk over everyone, no matter, even if Penn State's going to finish at the bottom of the Big Ten. So I think Michigan needed a little bit of a game like this. Maybe they even need a loss because maybe they're like, hey, we can escape that. We can escape anyone. No, it's easier said than done, but Michigan is going to be just fine. But Penn State a little better than we might have thought. St. John's wins at Butler. Butler spiraling. St. John's needed to have this game, and they got it. 84-70. San Diego State needed this game, and they got it as well. At Nevada, been playing a lot better as of late. Texas is not playing better as of late. They lose in the Rick Barnes Bowl. At number 21, Tennessee, 85-71. And then West Virginia beats Cincinnati, an Old Town rivalry game. Neither team even close to the bubble right now, 62-60. Let's move on to Wednesday, because Wednesday was a lot of movement in seed lines. Vanderbilt in Alabama was the game of the night. The two best teams in the SEC, in my opinion. Vanderbilt got it done, 96-90. Tyler Tanner, 29 points, 7 assists, 4 steals. Duke Miles also had 5 steals in this game. Devin McLaughlin, double-double. This team is awesome. Vanderbilt, they're going to be even higher than you might expect in bracketology. They are close to being a 1 seed. They're close to being a 1 seed right now. They're the best team in the SEC. They're 5-0 inside of quadrant 1. This team is awesome. We'll talk about their stats here in a little bit when we get into bracketology. For Alabama, they're going to be just fine. They showed up fine. They were without Aiden Sherrill, who's their leading shot blocker. Amari Allen was kind of forced into a bigger role, and he was really good. 25 points, 11 rebounds. LeBaron Philon was also fine. Better in the first half than in the second half for sure, but Alabama going to be just fine. Let's move across the top and talk about number 24 SMU losing to Clemson. Clemson got the job done 74-70. Two teams very similar in my opinion, like 5th, 6th in the ACC, behind Duke, Louisville, North Carolina, and Virginia. Then it's probably Clemson and SMU. In whichever order you want to put them. Clemson gets a win here, 74-70. Missouri wins at Kentucky, 73-68. This was, definitely an unexpected one. 12.5-point underdogs was Missouri. They go in and pick up a huge victory. Missouri really struggled to start the season. They lost to Illinois by 43, and they now, the top 2 teams in the SEC coming in the season, the heavy favorites, Kentucky and Florida. That's who Missouri started off their SEC schedule with. They beat them both. How about that? Good for Missouri. Missouri, we'll talk about them a little bit more. They're in the conversation right now, and they might be a little better off than you might think. Stanford and Virginia Tech. Stanford gets a win at Virginia Tech. Kyle Smith, how about that? And even more notably, how about Ibuka Okori? 31 points, game-winning 3 with 3 seconds left in the game to give them a 69-68 victory. I said it last year. Kyle Smith may be the most underrated coach in the entire country. He doesn't get talked about enough. He won at Washington State. No one wins at Washington State. No one wins at Stanford. Kyle Smith is winning at Stanford. We'll talk about them a little bit more in the bubble picture. Good stuff. Ibuka Okori, by the way, would be a first-team All-ACC player right now, averaging over 22 points per game. He's been fantastic. Maybe the most fun game of the night was number 4 UConn and Providence, where this was just an absolute shootout the entire way. 103-98, UConn gets the job done in overtime. UConn had 4 players with 20-plus in this one. Silas Demery Jr. had 23 points, 15 assists, including the dagger in overtime to get him the win. I just can't help but be amazed by the sets that UConn runs on offense. The amount of screens that they set, just the amount of movement that they get. Off-ball screening is just absolutely fantastic for Dan Hurley in this UConn team. They're a juggernaut yet again. Moving over to the ACC yet again, Miami wins at Wake Forest, 81-77. Not a ton of people talking about Miami. They've been pretty good. They are in better shape than you might think under first-year head coach Jay Lucas. They've been solid. Malik Renew has been very good for this Miami team. St. Louis and VCU, a game that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. St. Louis got the job done 71-62. St. Louis isn't just the favorite to win the A-10. They would be in the NCAA tournament right now, even if they didn't win the A-10. They are an at-large caliber team. Say VCU or Dayton wins the A-10 tournament. St. Louis, in my opinion, would definitely be in the tournament right now. They're awesome under Josh Schertz. Number 3, Iowa State went to Baylor, just controlled the entire way, 70-60. Win the game. Josh Jefferson, 19 points, 17 rebounds in this game. Most underrated player in the entire country. This podcast is going to post Friday morning, and actually on Thursday night, I have a post scheduled for my mid-season All-Americans. So go check that out on our Instagram and TikTok. Josh Jefferson, first team All-American. He is so underrated and has been absolutely fantastic for an undefeated Iowa State team. Oklahoma and Mississippi State. Mississippi State dominates 72-53. Josh Hubbard scores 30 points in this one. I'm gonna call my own. I was wrong with Mississippi State. They started off so bad to start the season where I just wrote them off, and I think I've said on just about every podcast, I'm like, this Mississippi State team, it's not going to age well as a win for some of these other teams. They're just not very good. They're better than I thought. They're picking up some good wins. They won a couple games in a row. Josh Hubbard was 1 of 7 from 3 in this game. I know he had 30, but wasn't that efficient, and they still dominated Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a really good offensive team, and to hold them to just 53 points, maybe Mississippi State's got something. They're on the outside looking in they're comfortably outside the tournament, but they've got a chance. Creighton, speaking of teams that are better than I thought, wins at Villanova, 76-72, just creating this weird circle of Big East teams of who's the second best team in the Big East. You got Creighton, Villanova, St. John, Seton Hall. They're just eating each other up. Could all 5 of them get in the tournament? Could maybe just one of them get in the tournament? I would lean probably 2 or 3 of them, but we'll see. Creighton picks up a huge win there. Number 15, Arkansas wins at Ole Miss, 94-87. Darius Acuff Jr. has been on a tear. 26 points, 9 assists in that one for him. Ole Miss just spiraling out of control. Indiana and Maryland. Indiana wins at Maryland, 84-66. Indiana's a good basketball team. I know they got a big game this weekend in football, but they're a very good basketball team as well. Should be in the NCAA tournament. Kansas State, number 1, Arizona. Arizona continues to dominate, 101-76. They get the job done. Arizona is, in my opinion, I probably wouldn't. I mean, it's not dumb to pick them to win the NCAA tournament. Like if it were to happen right now, they very well could be the best team in the country. I think they're the most bulletproof team in the country, though. Like just their style that they play, they're not relying on threes. They just bully you down low and score 101 points. This team is bulletproof, in my opinion. If they're a 1 seed or a 2 seed, this isn't an Arizona 2 seed team that's going to lose to a 15 seed. This team is fantastic. I think their floor should be like Sweet 16. This team is fantastic. Braden Burries, 28 points, 9 rebounds. Mo Krivas, 25 points, 12 rebounds. In this one, big men continue to just dominate Kansas State. Kansas State has no bigs that can compete with Big 12 caliber competition. Washington and number 5, Purdue. Purdue gets the job done, 81-73. BYU and Arizona State. BYU drills them 104-76. Arizona State has fallen off a cliff. Richie Saunders had a very good game in this one, 31 points, 8 rebounds. Belmont beats Northern Iowa in an MVC game, and Virginia takes down, sorry Cal fans, computer tricker Cal, 84-60. And Marquette picks up their first win in Big East play, taking down Xavier 66-65. Those might be the 2 worst teams in the Big East, Xavier and Marquette. Did you ever think you would hear that? DePaul might be better than them. Weird stuff going on in the Big East. All right, so that's everything that happened this past couple days. That's going to lead to some big changes in our bracketology. Like I said, these past 2 days, I've seen things change more than I have ever seen before. So this is going to be on the other side of the break. This is the numbers we're going to talk about. I'm going to give a brief intro on what to look for in bracketology. I'm going to keep trying to go back and forth with this is not my seed list. This is just a sheet that I use for seeding purposes. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But we are going to do a quick ad real quick. So we'll be back here. Join us on the other side for some bracketology talk. It's nearly impossible to find affordable golf instruction. Well, not any longer. Introducing Virtual Swing Reviews by PGA certified Brandon Jadich Golf Instruction. Just send a video of your swing to receive feedback to fix your swing in minutes. You don't need a $100 hour-long lesson when the instructor knows how to correct your habits after just one swing. Follow Brandon Jadich Golf Instruction on Instagram with the link below in the description and send a message saying swing review for just a $10 swing review, or comment under this YouTube video saying swing review. 2026 is a year of saving money and improvement. So start now with this limited time offer to grow your golf game. Alrighty, without further ado, here it is. This is our seed list as of right now. Like I said, there are games going on Thursday, so little things might change, but I wouldn't expect, Illinois, Michigan State. I believe Gonzaga plays Santa Clara, so that could be a little dangerous. But the Ohio State one is what I'll look at. As you can see, you might not be able to see them. They're actually in one of the first 4 games, so they're actually our last team in right now. But here's the seed list, but I do just want to talk about what I'm going to kind of try and hover back and forth between that graphic and this graphic, just so I can you can get a little visual on what I'm explaining here. This just shows, your resume metrics, your quality metrics. So your resume metrics are obviously, you got the KPI, you got your strength of record, wins against bubble. I love wins against bubble. That's the new metric that was added last year. I think it's our best resume metric, in my opinion. Quality metrics, which is your predictive metrics, KenPom, Torvik, BPI. It's all average plus your quadrant records, obviously, if you hear people referencing that. So let's talk about these 1 through 3 seeds as of now, because in all honesty, if you're going to find any other bracketologists out there, they're probably going to have this same 1 through 12. Maybe could be in a little bit different order, but to me, this is your definite 1 through 12. Michigan's your number 1 overall seed. They're they have the best average in terms of a resume-based metric, which is your KPI, strength of record, wins against bubble, combined for an average, and also they're number 1 in every computer that you will find. BPI, KenPom, Torvik, just 3 of them for, to be your number 1 overall seed. Arizona up next. I'm not even going to talk about these teams too much because we talk about them enough, just how awesome they are. Michigan, Arizona, I want to talk more about the bubble teams. UConn up next. I'm going to go back to the graphic real quick. So like I said, if you can find UConn, they're actually 8th in the net. The net is more like, don't influence their record. Like, UConn's the 8th best team in the country now. The net is more of a sorting tool than it is a ranking tool. It is a ranking, but it's more of a sorting tool. So if you can see, their wins against bubble is first. So they are first in wins against bubble, which means if you were to give every single team in the country their schedule, they, have done as well as you can do, at least according to the competition. So I do have UConn as the 3rd number 1 seed for that reason, with Iowa State being your 4th number 1 seed. Then I have Purdue as your first number 2 seed, which they're going to be a 2 seed in pretty much everyone's bracketology. Vanderbilt is up next. Vanderbilt is 6th overall right now, and there's an argument for them to be 5th. I put them 6th right now. They're 5-0 in Quad 1, 3-0 in Quad 1A. However, what I will say, and this is no disrespect to Vanderbilt, like I said, I think they're the best team in the SEC. Not all Quad 1 games are created equally. Not all Quad 1A games are created equally. I'm going to say Quad 1A games, which is your best wins you can have. You tell me it's a home win against Alabama, so fine. A neutral site game against St. Mary's and at UCF. So it's like, that's a little different than winning, say, at Purdue, like Iowa State has. So it's a little bit different, but still really good wins for Vanderbilt. Those games aren't easy, and they're fine. Duke up next as the 2 seed. If you see the asterisk next to that, next to their name, that means they're the projected conference winner out of their respective conference. So obviously the projected winner out of the ACC. And then Gonzaga, we're probably not going to talk a lot about Gonzaga over the next couple of weeks, just being in the WCC. Like I said, they play Santa Clara tonight. I'm sure we'll talk about them when they play St. Mary's. They escaped Seattle, but they're still right there as a number 2 seed. Good metrics, really good predictive. So, the computers think that this could be a legit national championship threat. The 3 seeds are filled in line right now. BYU, Houston, Nebraska, and Michigan State. All 3 of them just have been, really serviceable. Nebraska hasn't lost a game. The predictives still don't like Nebraska. They're 21st at KenPom, 21st at Torvik, but their resume is fantastic. 5th in strength of record, 5th in wins against bubble. They're still right there with an undefeated record as well. We'll see just how elite this team can be in Big Ten play. They've gotten off to, they couldn't have answered the bell more with a win at Ohio State, a win at Illinois, and a home win against Michigan State. That's a tough start to the schedule, and they've came in and won every single one of those games. So good stuff there. The other 3, we've talked about them enough. These are definitely your number 3 seeds, in my opinion. To me, there's a big gap between 2 and 3 seeds and 3 and 4 seeds. So the 4 seeds going to be Alabama. I know you might look at Alabama and say, well, they have, 4 losses right now. Yeah, they've played an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. When you play at St. John's, you play Purdue, Illinois, Gonzaga, Arizona, Vanderbilt, you're going to suffer some losses. They've won 2 of those games. They're also 4-0 in Quad 2 against Kentucky's a Quad 2 game, by the way, which is just strange to say. Kentucky, Clemson, South Florida, and Yale. So Alabama right there as a 4 seed. Illinois, they're top 10 in the net. They're 8th at Torvik, 9th at KenPom. Really good as well. We've talked a lot about Illinois on this podcast because they were actually one of my best bets in the preseason to win the Big Ten. Got them at plus 1,200. I believe they're actually worse than that now. It looked so good to start the season. I'm like, man, this is a top 10 team. And now it's like Michigan is like literally the second coming of the 2016 Warriors. And, Purdue's also awesome. And so is Michigan State and Nebraska. So maybe not the best bet, but they're still right there as a 4 seed. North Carolina up next as your next number 4 seed. Computers still don't like them, but they have a good resume, 3-2 inside Quad 1. they're just fine. And then Arkansas as your next number 4 seed. They did beat Texas Tech, who I have as the first 5 seed. It was really close for me from Arkansas to Texas Tech. Now, if I pull up this graphic, if I can find it, so this is going to be a good example of like a comparison right here. So if you can find Arkansas and Texas Tech, Arkansas actually 26th in that. If you looked at 26, with Texas Tech being 20th. Now, Texas Tech has resume averages of 17.7. Arkansas has averages of 20. However, Arkansas is actually better in strength of record and wins against bubble. So they're 2-1 in my, like, if you look at it, the KPI is a little bit of an outlier in this sort of resume-based metric, but Texas Tech a little bit higher in that one. Move over to the predictives. Every single one of them is pretty much going to lean. Yes, every single one of them, just by a hair, leans Texas Tech. So you might think, why is Texas Tech ahead or a little bit behind Arkansas right now? Well, Arkansas, if you look at the quadrants, is 3-3 inside quad 1, while Texas Tech is 2-4. So that definitely leads towards Arkansas. Arkansas is 1-0 in quad 2. Texas Tech 2-0. Texas Tech could combine 4-4 inside the first 2 quadrants, while Arkansas is 4-3. So those definitely lean towards Arkansas. And when you add Arkansas being higher in strength of record and wins against bubble, and then the head-to-head matchup on a neutral floor, I think you have to put Arkansas as a number as a 4 seed and Texas Tech as a 5 seed. However, I will admit it's very close. It depends how much you value head-to-head. And actually, I'm a guy who doesn't value head-to-head very much because, to me, like I said, Illinois beat. Who are we just talking about? Illinois beat someone by 43. Was it Missouri? They just beat Missouri by 43 points, and then Missouri beat Florida and Kentucky. Like, anything can happen at any given night. Some teams have off nights, but I did go with Arkansas over Texas Tech in that one. And then Kansas up next is your next 5 seed. I know you're going to see them in the loss column and be like, really? They're still there? Yeah, they've played an absolute gauntlet of a schedule as well. They've only lost 4 times, 4-0 in quad 2, 2-4 in quad 1. And what is the thing about Kansas's 2-4 in quad 1? They're also 2-4 in quad 1A. So all of their games in quad 1 have been top tier competition or top half of quad 1 games. So they're right there as well. They beat Tennessee earlier in the season. I got Tennessee as the next 5 seed. I've just been plugging along, kind of just, high floor, low ceiling sort of team, in my opinion. I don't think this team can win the national championship. I think a goal for this Tennessee team is probably to make the Sweet 16. I think you had a very successful season. They made the Elite 8 the past couple seasons. It's going to be hard for them to do again this year. Louisville up next as number 5 seed. I know Louisville fans might think like, hey, we're a national championship contender. We got a lot of hype in the preseason. We have all the pieces. However, I think them as a 5 seed, they're actually they're not as close to Tennessee, Kansas, and Texas Tech as they are to probably like SMU, believe it or not. Their resume just isn't that great. Like I said, I think Louisville's very good. I do think they're good, even though I watched them play the worst half of basketball I've ever seen. Their predictives are good, 13th at Torvik, 15th at KenPom, 15th in the net still. However, their resume isn't that fantastic. They're 31st in strength of record, 25th in wins against bubble. That's why I say they're a little bit closer to those 6 seeds than actually those 5 seeds, but do still have them in, as a team that if you're a 5 seed, Louisville, that would be a popular pick to make make the Final Four Elite 8. Up next, 6 seeds, all teams that are like very similar to me and kind of fun. I like seeing all these teams up here. Virginia and Villanova, let's skip over Clemson. Sorry, Clemson, just real quick, just because these are 2 teams that won national championships in 2018 and 2019. They're back on the map as 6 seeds right now. Clemson also as a 6 seed. I'm actually going to pull up this graphic just to kind of try and go back and forth, just kind of look at them. These are all teams that are very like average in terms of like their resume compared to their predictive metrics. As you can see, Virginia, they're 21st if you can't find them. 23 average of resume, 19.3 average of quality. Pretty good there. Villanova down at 29, 22.7 average of resume. So a hair better of a resume than Virginia, but definitely worse predictives, 29.7. Still not bad predictives, but an average of 29.7 compared to Virginia's 19.3. That's why Virginia is ranked a little bit higher. Hopefully this is all making sense to people and I'm explaining it well enough. Now let's talk about Clemson, because Clemson I did not think was going to make the NCAA tournament this season, and that's a mistake when it's a Brad Brownell team. If you didn't see Clemson on that last list, because they're actually 32nd, so they would be in a different graphic, which I do actually have here, 30 through 60 right here. So as you can see, they're 32nd. have really good resume-based metrics, 17th in strength of record, 19th in wins against bubble. Really good. Predictives don't like them as much. That's because a little bit of the preseason bias is still there. But they've obviously a very good basketball team. So Clemson as a 6 seed, what a job by Brad Brownell. Not the most talented team in the country, but always solid under Brad Brownell. And then SMU is the last 6 seed. I know they just lost to Clemson, so both of those in a 6-versus-6 matchup. But SMU 27th in the net, really good really good resume-based metrics, but it's kind of being carried by KPI, which is 13th. And I don't know if it's just ignorant of me, but I don't pay that much attention to KPI and BPI. I'm more of a strength of record and wins against bubble and KenPom and Torvik guy. Just KPI and BPI, there's just always sometimes some like weird numbers. So, but anyways, SMU still really good resume as a 6 seed right now. They're comfortably in under Andy Enfield. 7 seeds, like I said, I have SMU as a 6 seed. I have SMU ahead of Florida. Florida as a 7 seed. Florida hasn't done too much. The predictives still love them. 13th at KenPom, 15th at Torvik, but the resume is not near as good as SMU's. So that's another good one where I just want to give example and just kind of explain how hard it is between the two. So if you find Florida at 19th in the net versus SMU at 27th in the net, like how do you compare these two teams? Look at the resume-based metric, 35.7 average for Florida compared to SMU 19.7. That's a huge gap for SMU. SMU predictives average of 33.7 compared to Florida 13.7. That's a huge difference in the other direction. So if you're going to see a bunch of different bracketologists having different numbers, a lot of this is the reason why. Who values predictives? Who values more resume? Normally when it gets towards the bubble, I value more resume, and here I just I do a little bit of both, and then if it's close like this, I look at the quadrants. SMU 2 and 3 in quad 1 compared to Florida 2 and 5. That doesn't help much. They're both very similar. I ended up with SMU as the final 6 seed though, over after crunching all the numbers over Florida. Florida as your 7 seed. Utah State as the favorite out of the Mountain West. Just kind of plugging along. St. Mary's as well, just also kind of plugging along. Don't really have much to say about them. UCF right here is a 7 seed. Yes, they would be a 7 seed in my opinion right now. This is a very good basketball team. They beat Kansas. We'll see how they do in Big 12 play. I know they beat Kansas in Big 12 play. Well, this is a team that I'm paying attention to. How do they do away from home? They got a good home court environment. They can beat anyone at home. They've proven that over the past couple seasons. But will they be able to, compete with the likes at Texas Tech, at even a Baylor, someone like that? 8 seeds, Indiana off to a good start this season. They still don't have a quad 1 win, but they don't have any bad losses. They have 1 quad 2 loss, and outside of that, 0 losses. So they're right there. Iowa also, I'm going to talk about some of these teams that might be a little lower than you think. Now the predictives really like Iowa. However, they don't have a quad 1 win yet. They've only played two quad 1 games. That's at Michigan State, at Iowa State. So those are hard ones to win. They're 36 in strength of record, 39th in wins against bubble. That gets you into the tournament. Their predictives are really good for an average of 22.3. That is very good for an Iowa team. However, with that resume, not quite up to I believe in my first ranking, I had them as a 6 seed, and then they just lost to Minnesota, obviously. And now they're, just other teams are kind of passing them, in my opinion, like that UCF win, passing them Florida, passing them SMU, Clemson, all picking up big wins, while Iowa's just kind of been stuck in cruise control right now. Seton Hall is the next 8 seed. They're right there. The preseason bias is holding them back a little bit in terms of the predictive metrics, but the resume-based metrics, 21st in strength of record, 23rd in wins against bubble. Very good. Georgia, you might think this is low for Georgia fans. I do just want to explain they don't have a quad 1 win. I know they've only lost 2 games on the entire season, but let me just talk about their wins right now. And this is via Bart Torvik, that team sheet I'm going off of. Their best win is, so they beat Auburn, who's 37th at KenPom, but they beat them at Torvik, excuse me. They beat them in overtime. Outside of that, it's 73rd ranked Cincinnati. And then outside of that, they don't have any top 100 wins. So that's the reason Georgia is going to be a little lower than you might think. I know they look the part and the computers like them because they can score the ball and beat teams badly. Seed right now. In fact, I have them closer to a 9 seed than an 8 seed. Starting with the 9 seeds, here we go. Mid-major love, St. Louis. So this means I would have them right here, even if they don't make the NCAA tournament. This is obviously the automatic qualifier out of the A10 right now. But say Dayton wins the A10, I would still have St. Louis in the tournament as a 9 seed right now. That's how good they have been. They're 24th in the net, 30th in strength of record, 34th in wins against bubble. Now, it's very hard for these mid-majors to climb up high in the predictive metrics. However, they're 32nd at KenPom and 33rd at Torvik. So they're still loved by the computers because they're a very well-coached team, and Josh Schertz is fantastic. I have St. Louis above St. John's. Who would have thought that in the preseason? St. John's still really hasn't beaten anyone. Too fantastic. Their best wins are, let me remind myself here. I know they beat Baylor. Who was the other one that they beat? Who's their other Butler? Yeah, Butler is a quad one win right now, but Butler is 48th in the net right now. That's quad one win. So that was at Butler. But so 2 quad one wins, Baylor and Butler, not like the most awesome quad one wins ever, but they're still right there in the conversation. Up next is Miami, Florida. Like we talked about, they're better than you might think. Miami, Florida is a team to pay attention to. They're 22nd in strength of record. 22nd. Now, they're 31st in wins against bubble. Predictives have them with an average of 37. Haven't played the elite competition yet. Their one quad one win is the game they just picked up at Wake Forest. But they're right there. They've done everything that they needed to do. Wake Forest or Miami should be a tournament team, in my opinion. Wake Forest, even like US, or why do I keep saying Wake Forest? Miami, Florida, USC, like Georgia, UCF, like these are the games in March Madness where it's like we've paid attention to them, but it's like, do you pick them to win a game in March, or is it like especially Miami, Florida? It's like, are they tournament win a game good in an 8-9 matchup? Those are always the tough ones to pick, but I kind of like to identify those teams early of like, what am I going to do with them when they get there? Because I haven't paid, they've kind of been a little bit off of the radar this season. Up next as a 9 seed is going to be USC. USC is off to a solid start, but they have really struggled without Rodney Rice, as we mentioned. Elijah Arenas is supposedly supposed to be back somewhat soon, but we'll see about that one. All right, now I'm going to start hovering back and forth as we start talking bubble. So this is actually a team I don't even have as a last 4 bye, which might be shocking to some, but it's Creighton. So let me pull them up as they would be on, I believe this graphic. Nope, that is not even close to the right graphic. Right here. So Creighton, as you can see, they're at 41st right here. Their metrics are good. 49th in strength of record, 44th in wins against bubble. Average of 44.7 in the resume base, 42, 40, and 39 for 40.3 in the predictives. That puts you right around the bubble. However, the bubble is a little bit worse than you think. Usually like 40 to 45-ish is like the numbers you want to keep it in terms of the resume to be comfortably in the tournament. But if like you're looking at this graphic, like look at Baylor. Baylor is 57.7, Ohio State 54, Auburn 45.7. So they're a little lower than you might think. Like if you have an averages are going to be a little higher than just like even like Michigan's average is 2. And they're obviously, but they're first. Like this isn't ranking them 1 through 41. This is ranking them it's just resonating their averages. So Creighton with that, they have a better resume average than Auburn. You look over at their sheets. They don't have any bad losses. Their losses are they're 1-5 in quad one. However, they do have 1 quad 1A win, which was the one at Villanova. They have 1 quad 2 loss, 3-6 inside the first 2 quadrants. I think that's good enough right now. Remember last year, North Carolina got in with a 1-11 record in quad 1. They played a tough schedule. Creighton's played a tough schedule. I have Creighton inside the NCAA tournament right now, not even as a last 4 bye team. I got them right there because the bubble is a little bit worse than you think. All right, so I am going to switch graphics real quick to our bubble graphic, and we're going to talk about our bubble watch. So like we said, Creighton not in this conversation. Like we said, Auburn, I am going to go back to this graphic. So let's just remember this. Actually, I didn't even realize this when putting it together. It's 4 SEC schools, last 4 buys: Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, Missouri. So I do have Missouri in the tournament, and I did move Texas A&M up. LSU's been hovering right around this spot the entire season. So Auburn, A&M, LSU, Missouri. Let's find Auburn on here at 37 if you can find them. So 45.7. Let's compare them to Creighton, compared to 44.7 for Creighton. However, Creighton is 3-6 inside the first 2 quadrants, while Auburn 2-6, while they're 1-5 in quad one, as is Creighton, but Creighton has that one quad 1A win. That's why I lean Creighton over Auburn at this point in the season, which is just kind of crazy to say. Now, I already can't remember who the next team was. It was Texas A&M. So Texas A&M, you can find them here at 48th, 46.7. So very similar to Creighton and Auburn in these metrics. The predictives aren't as high, 30, or actually, you know what? They're still pretty fine, 36.3. So very similar to Auburn. However, they are a little worse than Auburn in terms of resume averages and predictive averages, although they haven't played as many, top tier competition, only 1 and 2 in quad one. So this is the wins against bubble and strength of record kind of averages that out when they haven't played as many great opponents. But like we said, all quad 1A, all quad 1 games and all quad 2 games aren't created equally. So that's where the strength of record and those sort of things come in. And, wins against bubble and strength of record both favor Auburn, though it is very slight, along with the predictives favoring Auburn, which is why I have Auburn just a hair ahead of Texas A&M. Up next is LSU, who you can find 2 spots ahead of Texas A&M in this graphic at 46. So their resume not as good. Predictives are still fine. They're hanging on by a thread. One quad 1 win is kind of holding them on right now. Have not played a tough schedule right now, but I think these metrics are just close enough. Alrighty, next up would be, who was the last team we talked about? Missouri. Missouri coming off of that huge win, so you might actually not even be able to see them on this graphic. They're actually 67th, so you're just going to have to listen to me talk on this one as they don't go all the way down there. 67th in the net, but their resume-based metrics, 33rd in strength of record and 30th teams we just talked about. However, the predictives not quite there. 53rd at Torvik and 52nd at KenPom right now. All right, let's talk about the last 4 in Kentucky. As a last 4 team in right now, really just hanging on by a thread. They are still, what are they, 35th at 35th in the net right now. So I'll just pull up this graphic yet again. Got to pull up the second graphic. Look at their resume-based metrics. 63rd in strength of record, 57th in wins against bubble. That's not good. Now they've played a really tough schedule, but they haven't beaten anyone enough to boost these rankings at all. I know they beat Indiana and who was the other team? They beat St. John's, but outside of that, it's not been a good season for Kentucky. That's why a 68.7 average to me is not good enough for you to have a first round bye. That's why I have them as they would be playing in Dayton right now. Now a completely different resume would be Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State, you're actually not going to be able to see because they're actually 66th in the net. So we said resume average of 68.7 for Kentucky. Oklahoma State's is 28. That's a 40-point difference. So Oklahoma State, much better resume. They would play Kentucky in the first round, at least according to me, but their predictives are so much worse for an average of 65 compared to Kentucky, 28. So huge difference yet again. How do you compare those 2 schools? I would have them both in Dayton. That's what I would do. And then Baylor and Ohio State, we've talked about these teams a lot. They're actually right next to each other, so I will pull up this graphic real quickly here. They're right next to each other, both similar resumes, but both just kind of hanging on by a thread. All right, so I'm going to kind of try and fly through these ones as they're just up next. I'm not going to talk about all their resumes. NC State right there, Wisconsin right there, Stanford and Virginia Tech, like we mentioned right there. TCU is a next 4-out team. Now, the one I do want to talk about, which we'll have to talk about, is UCLA. Because I've seen UCLA in some, I don't base my rankings off other bracketologies, but I have seen them as mostly 9 or 10 seeds in a lot of bracketologists. I don't know why. They're 65.7 resume based. So if you want to argue this against Kentucky, go for it. They're 59th in wins against bubble compared to Kentucky's 57th. Kentucky's 63rd in strength of record compared to UCLA 61st. So those pretty much just cancel each other out. I'm just disregarding KPI in this one. The predictives all lean towards Kentucky, including in the net, and this is by a lot. So that's the big difference there. Kentucky is 2-5 in quad 1 compared to UCLA 1-4 in quad 1. UCLA's 0-1 in quad 2. They're 1-5 inside the first 2 quadrants. They have beaten absolutely nobody. Their one quad 1 game is at Washington. That's not a great quad 1 win. It's a good win, but nothing too fantastic. Washington's 56th in the net. So UCLA, they don't have a tournament resume, in my opinion, right now. The predictives aren't good enough to carry them there. And the resume-based metrics are, comparable with Kentucky. And Kentucky, there's an argument that they shouldn't even be there. So I have UCLA outside of the tournament right now. And then New Mexico, who's just kind of plugging along, and then Cal. And then up next, still in the hunt, San Diego State, Butler, Notre Dame, George Mason. Like I said, I had actually San Diego or Missouri in the up next category, and then they go out and pick a tournament. So anything can happen for these teams. It's still early. A lot is going to change. So that's the bubble watch right now. So let's go back to the graphic. So like we said, Missouri, and then Kentucky playing Oklahoma State, Baylor playing Ohio State, and then Miami of Ohio as an 11 seed out of the MAC, still undefeated on the season. They picked up a huge win against Akron a couple of days ago. Now we'll talk about these mid-major teams. Yale out of the Ivy, the heavy favorite. Murray State out of the Missouri Valley, could be Belmont, could be Northern Iowa. Really fun conference. Memphis, this is not an at-large Memphis team. This is someone has to win the American. They still haven't lost a game in the American. I think it's going to be them or Tulsa, but they're undefeated. Tulsa's not in the American, so went with Memphis. Wouldn't that be funny if they're a 12 seed? McNeese as your next 12 seed out of the Southland. They're the heavy favorite. High Point, the heavy favorite out of the Big South. Liberty, favorite of this Conference USA. UC Irvine off to a great start in Big West play. Then Utah Valley is definitely the team to beat in the WAC. We got Hofstra up next as a 14 seed. They just picked up a win earlier today against Towson in the CAA. ETSU out of the SoCon, Arkansas State out of the Sun Belt, and Oakland, Greg Campy. Yeah. That'd be fun. Out of the Horizon. Then we got Lipscomb, St. Thomas, Montana State, and Quinnipiac as your 15 seeds, with LIU and Vermont as your 16 seeds with the bye. Colgate taking on UT Martin, the people's team. UT Martin, everyone loves them. And then Grambling and Howard as your other play-in game as 16 seeds. So this is the entire bracketology. This will be posted on our Instagram, TikTok. Be sure to go check it out. I don't really respond to comments on there because we get a lot and people are very mean on there. I like to more respond with the YouTube people. So if you see numbers that are like, hey, maybe, someone should be a little ahead of someone. Like I said, it is so hard to compare all these teams because comparing one team to another is completely different from comparing a team that you had ahead of them to that same. It's all over the place, but this is what we landed on. All right, so we just want to talk about the upcoming quick week of hoops. This is actually just Saturday's graphic pulled up for, I should mention tonight, like we said, Ohio State, Oregon, Northwestern plays Michigan State. That's who it is. Then Santa Clara, Gonzaga, and there was one more. I can't remember who it was. Illinois plays someone, but Rutgers, I believe. And then on Friday, this is actually Saturdays that you see pulled up here as the graphic. But on Friday, you got USC at Minnesota. You do have Miami of Ohio still undefeated at Toledo. Toledo's no slouch. Toledo's pretty good. So watch out for that one. But let's talk about Saturday because we have a lot of good games. This is ranked by Thrill Score. This is actually if you hear me say, I wanted to give a little bit of an insight here because I'm if you hear me say, they're favored by 1 at KenPom. This is what it is. So Houston's favored by 1 at Baylor at KenPom, and these rankings next to them are the KenPom rankings. So we got Houston at Baylor at 1 o'clock on Peacock. Houston favored by 1. Arkansas at Auburn favored by 1, 6 o'clock ESPN. Nebraska still undefeated at Indiana, but Indiana's favored in that game by 3. Could this be the end of Nebraska's run? 12 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Tennessee at Florida. Florida's favored by